Hello. I know, too much of the spotlight right there. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us, all of you in the room, and all of you joining us via Zoom. Welcome to you too. We're happy you all could be with us tonight, whether here or from home. We have, it's not working?
Oh, is it okay?
Is this better? Okay. All right. Well, welcome. Maybe the Zoom people didn't hear me before, so I'm sorry. I was welcoming you and the people in the room. We have some books over here for those of you who are here that are related to tonight's topic. If you'd like to browse through them and take them home, please do so. Also, we have a lot of great programs this month. So quickly, I want to tell you about them. This Sunday is our Arts Alive concert for January. We have Alfonso Ponticelli coming. He has not been here before, but I've heard his music and it's great. It's jazz, but he blends American jazz, what he calls gypsy jazz, flamenco, international folk music. And he has a three-piece group with vocalist. And I think it's going to be, I think you're going to enjoy it. It will be hybrid. So if you can't make it here, you can watch from home. We have our movie, our monthly movie on Tuesday, the 17th at 2 p.m. And it is Where the Crawdads Sing, which is based on a big bestseller from a few years ago. It's a good book and a good movie. I saw the movie. Next Wednesday, we have Modern Calligraphy. It's a workshop on calligraphy. The presenter, Audrey Rao, she's taught watercolor before. She's very good. She will bring the supplies. It will not be hybrid. It will be in person only. And it's limited to 30. So please, there are I just checked before the program. 18 people have signed up. So there are some spaces left. So, but if you think you want to come, you should sign up. And then, excuse me, on the 26th, we do have Robert Mueller coming back. He'll be here, like I said, on the 26th, 6:30. He has been here many times. He does historical programs, mainly about World War I, World War II. This time he's going to do the naval battles of the Pacific, America on the defense, and talk about how our Navy, our very thinned out Navy after Pearl Harbor, had to defend Australia from the Japanese Imperial Navy that was headed that way. And he has an amazing attention to detail. We'll have photographs and maps. He's excellent. And I think I said that one is hybrid also. So I wanted to get all that in. January is a busy month here. So tonight we are here to learn about the power of self-compassion. We're going to develop some tools to help us handle difficult emotions with greater ease. And to motivate, I have to laugh as I say this because I'm so guilty of this, of not doing this. We should motivate ourselves with kindness rather than criticism. If you could hear the conversations that go on in my head to myself, they're not right. So I'm hopefully going to learn a lot tonight. So please welcome Chris George.
Thank you, Janet. Let's see, am I on mic over there? Good, real good. I can't hear. Oh, there we go. You guys hear me okay back there? Okay. My voice usually projects, so I should be okay with, but let me know if you can't hear me, if I drift or something. So, well, thank you, Janet, and thank you to the Rolling Meadows Library. It's really a pleasure to be here, my first time here, and live in the community. So it's yeah, it's just always to me a blessing to be able to come out and speak about a topic that's so near and dear to my heart, and that there's people that actually want to learn about this. And so that's so thank you for taking the time out on a Thursday night, which you could be doing other things with your time. So I do appreciate it. And yeah, so tonight, before we get started, I'll just kind of give you an idea of what we're going to be doing in this time. So I'm going to do talking, I'll be kind of talking at you and giving you some information, talking about self-compassion, but I really want to kind of not be so heavy on the talking and make this as experiential as possible. And so I handed you all have a notepad. You're welcome to take notes. There will be one exercise that we'll do at the beginning. And other than that, there won't be any other written exercises, but feel free to take notes. And but I want to make this really experiential. So we'll do a couple of practices that you can do. I have a handout that I'll give you at the end. And hopefully, you'll have some tools that you can take from here and really be able to start practicing self-compassion. That's really my intention, is to kind of lay some seeds, give you hopefully some motivation, inspire you maybe a little bit from my own, interweaving my own personal story and journey that I've gone through and still going through on this self-compassion trip. And then hopefully you can practice this. So yeah, so actually this first, just you being here is already an act of compassion to yourself. So I hope you know that, and you take that in, that you made the effort to be here. And so that says a lot already. So with that, just to kind of give you a little bit about me and why I'm up here teaching about the power, and I call it the power of self-compassion because I truly believe it is a power. I really believe this is a natural human superpower that you all already have. You already have that sitting in the seat that you're in. You already have it within you. It's just learning to train. And we haven't evolved. Our human brains have not evolved enough yet to be able to start doing these naturally. So we need to train, we need to learn it. And so my own process took about 15 years ago. I was really starting to get hit with a lot of adversity. I had a lot of early childhood trauma in my life and stress, but then it kind of, not until I got into my early adulthood and really starting to have, working with, family and jobs, and a lot of these insecurities and these things that came up, and my inner critic, and it was really beating me up really badly, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Therapy wasn't quite enough, and I tried pretty much every personal development tool that you could find out there, but it wasn't until I found mindfulness, and that was the first step, was that I discovered meditation, and I tried meditation, but then I can't stop the thoughts. This isn't working. But it took some time, and mindfulness really was phase one of really finding my inner compass. And then, but there was still something missing. And the other piece was the self-compassion, what I call the other wing of the bird, the two wings of the bird. So mindfulness and self-compassion. And so it's really helped me, stop the limiting beliefs that I have, the patterns, at least being able to catch my habitual patterns. And so I'm still learning. And as I talk tonight, I'll be, learning, and this will be helping me as well. But I've gone, I decided that I really wanted to start teaching this because I felt so much value that it was bringing in my own life. So while I was at Harper College, I worked there for many years, and that's where I started to train college students in this work. And then I'm like, I really want to start learning this more and started getting it out to the public. So, so I've been doing this for about 8 years, teaching this to libraries, to whoever will have me. And that's what brought me to tonight. I like to do this illustration of, you guys all know the Peanuts comic strip. And so there's one that I really find that really resonates with me. And I'll kind of give the scenario to you. It's Lucy and Charlie Brown. And Lucy and Charlie Brown are talking. And Lucy's in the first frame, she's saying, Charlie Brown, what the problem with you is that you're you. And he's just kind of sitting there baffled, and he's like, well, great. What am I, what am I going to do about that? And she's like, Charlie Brown, I don't, pretend to, to know the answers. I just tell the truth and how it is. And the truth is that, you're you, and that's a problem. And that's that kind of inner voice is what I've carried around for much of my life. And so that may be something that resonates with you, is that you've got that inner voice that keeps telling you you're not good enough. Your inadequacies and your failings, you kind of focus on those. And for me, that's really, I think it held me back in a lot of ways, and personally and professionally. And so I'm here to be able to, give you some tools. This self-compassion can really make a big difference in your life. So that's a lot of talking, and but I wanted to give you a little bit of backstory. So here I am teaching, and I'm just a messenger. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm just a messenger who's really been profoundly impacted by these teachings. And so I'm here to share it with you. And what I want to start is one short practice just to kind of get us started. So, and it's not really a meditation, but I will invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. If not, you can just kind of look downward on the, in front of you a little bit, just to not be distracted looking around. And so that now that everyone's physically present in the room, I'd like to bring our hearts and mind into the room as well. So just beginning to listen to the sounds in the room. You also might take just a few deep breaths on your own. Can really help to regulate the nervous system, and just letting your exhale be a little bit longer. Just really letting go of whatever it took to arrive here, and letting go of what's yet to come. Just checking in with yourself. You can do that by listening to the sounds, just finding your own body in the room. Maybe welcoming yourself in the room with greeting yourself with an inner smile. And just inclining your awareness as you would maybe a dear friend. And dropping into your body. Noticing the physical sensations in the body as they come and go. Whether they're pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And are there any pleasant sensations in the body? And if so, can you take a moment to appreciate and savor them? Are there any unpleasant sensations? And if so, can you just make a little room for them, a little space, just allowing them to be here, if only for this moment? And remembering that you are not alone, that any uneasiness or discomfort is just part of the human condition. And if there is discomfort, just see if you can let your heart soften a little bit. Be a little tender, just simply because this is so. Or maybe offering yourself some words of encouragement, like it's okay. You can handle this. And then finally, just appreciating the good effort and intention that brought you here tonight, which is already an act of compassion and self-compassion. And before you open your eyes, I would like to also just invite you to ask yourself internally, what is your intention for being here? Just asking, why am I here? Why am I really here? Why at this particular stage in my life? Why am I really here? And just seeing what arises. And if nothing arises, and just letting that be and giving yourself compassion for that, and that it will come in time. And so taking another few deep breaths. And then when you're ready, you can slowly, gently open the eyes. So before we move on, I just would like to invite anyone who wants to share what came up as far as your intention for being here. If anybody wants to share. Yes, ma'am.
Seeking peace.
Seeking peace. Great, thank you. Anybody else? What brought you here? Always learning? Learn, okay, great, yes. Great. Anybody else? And so just letting that, rest with you and just kind of keeping that with you throughout the program, and just, if nothing came up, just letting that be. But that intention, whatever brought you here, will help motivate you and inspire you to continue on. And that's really important. Whatever brought you here, there's some type of, there's something that's kind of driving that. So that's really important. So before we, I'm going to kind of talk about what self-compassion is, but I really want to talk about, how when self-compassion, when we think of self-compassion, I think a lot of us kind of, and we'll get into some of the myths about self-compassion, but the things that I think that kind of prohibit us from practicing is that we don't feel like that we deserve it, or we think we should be harder on ourselves. But when we think about compassion in itself, just the act of compassion, we're really good at that. Like when someone comes to us and, when they're suffering, you can begin to think, and we're going to do an exercise here now about that, is how would you treat a dear friend that came to you that was struggling? And just pause so I can let the Zoom folks know also, just to get something, if you can, just something to write with, just to jot down. We're going to be doing an exercise in a moment. So if you can get that, we're going to start. So be thinking about the question, and I'm going to kind of do this as a reflection, and I invite you can close your eyes to do this. Kind of sometimes I think helps to close your eyes and go inward, and I can read this to you. But so I want you to think about a time in your life when a close friend who felt really bad and was struggling in some way, how did you respond to that friend? So that's why I said maybe closing the eyes, so that you can think about an example in your life when that loved one came to you. And how did you respond to that friend or that loved one? So taking a moment, and when you have that, if you already have it, you can start jotting it down, if that's helpful. But we've all had times in our lives when a friend has come to us and, been struggling, going through a hard time. And how did you just, what tone did you use? What nonverbal gestures maybe did you use with this friend? Okay, so you can close your eyes again, if that's comfortable. And now I want you to think about various times when you were suffering in some way, when you had a misfortune, when you failed, when you felt inadequate. How do you typically respond to yourself in these situations? What do you say? What tone do you use? How does your posture get? What are your nonverbal gestures? So when you're suffering, how do you relate to yourself? And you won't be sharing this, so please, be honest as possible. We won't be sharing what you're writing down. So just, really be honest with yourself. That's really a first step of being self-compassionate, is just to be honest, whatever comes up. Okay. And so the next question is, what did you notice about the patterns of difference between the two? So from the friend that you were helping in time of distress and time of need, what was the difference between the two? And was there a difference? And please know that, this is another test of being self-compassionate to yourself, is to not sit and judge yourself, or like, oh my gosh, I'm really hard on myself, or, so if there is a difference, just being kind to yourself. This is not easy. And most people tend to be more compassionate to others than we are to ourselves. So it's natural. And I would be really surprised if everyone said, oh no, you probably wouldn't be here, right? And so the next question or thing to think about, reflect on, is to think about how things might change if you responded to yourself in the same way that you typically respond to that close friend. What would be the difference? So write down anything that you think that might change moving forward in the future. When you face when you face a situation that's really difficult. And then this question that I put up now is, so why not treat ourselves like a good friend and see what happens? But I'm curious what you came up with, and if anybody wants to share, what are some things that you noticed? Without sharing any, you don't have to personally, any personal details, but just kind of what came up. What did you notice? Yeah.
Well, as a friend, the first thing we do is probably of the friend,
Mhm.
and then you tell them that it will be okay. And you're there to support them, whatever decision they make. Up to yourself. That's not it. Why did that happen to me? Why didn't I see it coming? So you beat your, I don't know, I tend to beat myself up. Where with a friend, you do the complete opposite, because you don't want that friend to hurt. And if it does hurt, you want them to know that there's somebody there that will listen. You don't know how to, you can't tell a friend what to do, but you can listen to them. In your own mind when all this is going on. You're just, I don't know, I beat myself up.
Yeah. Great. I mean, not great that you do that, but it's great that you're recognizing the difference then. And that's,
I totally
so,
recognize the difference.
and that's the first step. That's all, that's all we're trying to do in this exercise, is just start to notice the difference. And then, then we'll give you the tools then to start making that switch, and to start just really being able to start, thinking about, like, gosh, how much better my life and more ease my life could be if I just, showed up a little bit more kind to myself.
I say to myself, which I never did before. When I did it with one of those, and I'll say, now I say to myself, well, it's okay to cry.
Mm.
Okay, or. And
Mhm.
now you say to yourself, well, it's okay to cry. Just, it's okay to have a bad day. I mean, I do say that, it's okay to have a bad day once in a while, or it's okay to cry. So I've come to a different Still not the best place, but better place.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Yeah.
Like her. Usually the friends who bottom. No matter what. And with myself, it's usually I should have done better, study more, somehow it's your fault, whatever it is. If you were just smarter, or it always comes back down on you.
Mhm.
And if you treated your friends like that when they were hurting, you probably wouldn't have it.
Exactly. Good point. Yeah. Good point. Thank you. Yeah, so this is a really, I think, a really powerful way to just start to be able to, turn inward and really kind of think about how are we showing up? And what you're describing is just all very normal. And so I want to, I really want to emphasize that, because a lot of us can beat ourselves up, like, for not being more self-compassionate, but this is hard. This is not easy. And especially I know, and I noticed this immediately that, there's no men in the room. And this is typically what happens when I give these presentations, that there's maybe one guy. But anyway, yeah, because even men, women have a hard time with this, but men have an even harder time. Just the name self-compassion is like, oh no, honey, you go ahead, But anyways, that could go down. We could talk about that for. So, all right. So that's it for that exercise. I just wanted to kind of, I think, and keep that in those notes and be able to, as you move forward, to start thinking about this, when something comes up, remembering how you relate to your friend, and just saying, if maybe just, we can gently give ourselves a little bit more compassion. So let me ask you this: what do you think self-compassion? What is self-compassion, first of all? How would you? I'll give you a definition of it, or there's not really one definition of it, but when you think of self-compassion,
Putting me first.
putting me first. Okay, yeah. Give me a little bit more.
Loving
Maybe.
yourself.
What's that?
Loving yourself.
Loving yourself. Okay, yeah. Anybody else? I'll give you, so first we'll start with compassion, because it's so much easier, I think, for people to understand what compassion is, because we're so good at it. We're good at giving compassion to others. So compassion is really, first of all, there has to be suffering. There has to be some type of suffering involved. And so when we see others suffering, first we have to notice it, right? So we have to notice that there's suffering. So like, driving by all the time, I drive, and I see the homeless people on the street, and, I just notice my intention, like, where does it go? Do I ignore the person, or do I, even acknowledge the person? So it's first, noticing, do I notice the suffering? And then, but what compassion does is that it's really takes it a step further. So it's not only noticing it, but then it's feeling so moved by what the person's going through that you want to help, and you want to give kindness, and you want to give them something, understanding, giving something. And it's really because that it's part of the human experience that, they're a human just like I am, and, that we all suffer. It's that common humanity. But so much of our, we first of all, like, and I think that's why this exercise is good, is that we don't really notice our suffering first. So it's noticing our own suffering and wanting to alleviate it, not wanting to add more. I mean, things are going to happen to us that we can't control, but it's the added suffering that we add on to it. It's the self-talk and the inner critic that we add on to it. And so there's this equation that another mindfulness teacher came up with, was that, when we have pain and we resist it, which most of the time we do, we don't notice the body. We're usually not we're not checked into the body. We don't know what emotions are going on. And then we suffer. And so self-compassion is really about noticing that suffering is there, wanting to to help ourselves because we love ourselves and we don't want to suffer. And then we also notice it's just the human, everybody suffers, everybody has hardships. So I think being able to really be able to wrap our heads around, okay, I can give compassion to other people, but what about, how do I do it? How do I do it for myself? And so there's 3 components that, and I teach this through, it's called the mindful, you can look this up later. It's the 2 individuals that came up with this program called Mindful Self-Compassion, Kristen Neff and Chris Germer. They're the 2 kind of the pioneers, Kristen Neff especially because she's been researching this now. There's like over 4,000 studies now, and was really one of the first researchers. And I'm not sure if Janet has, I picked up one book, but I didn't know they had those books. But if not, I'm going to show them at the end, those resources for you. But so they came up with these 3 components. And so this is the kind of the necessary ingredients to have self-compassion. And I'm going to actually start at the right. So mindfulness is the first one. So because first of all, we have to be aware, again, that we're suffering, right? And not judging. So mindfulness is not only just noticing it, but it's leaving out the judgment part, because we have judgments about everything and we'll judge ourselves, and so it's really just being aware, like, oh, wow, I'm really, I'm really suffering right now. This is a difficult situation that I'm going through right now. And then being able to see then if we can give ourselves some kindness, self-kindness. So that's the other piece. Self-kindness is really the piece that we think about with self-compassion, usually is that tenderness. And I'm gonna, we're gonna talk about tenderness, but then there's also a fierce self-compassion too. And then the third part of it is common humanity, that we all suffer. This is something that, this isn't in isolation. People, the situations might be different, but the pain is still, it's still emotional pain that we go through, and this is something that we all go through. And that's something for me personally that because I would, when I was going through some really pretty severe depression, I would feel like I was the only one in the world that's going through this, and I would compare, and I'd be looking on Facebook and everybody else has got these great lives and I'm the only one that's, I'm the messed up one, but little do I know that behind that there's a facade, there's stuff going on in everybody's lives, right? But this was a huge thing for me, was just that noting that, everybody's going through this, Chris, everybody. And so one of the things Kristen Neff has that you can take on her website that I really recommend you doing, she has a self-compassion scale that you can take online. And this is really helpful. It's like in the title of it is, How Do I Typically Act Towards Myself in Difficult Times? And so you can take that on our site. And what I like to do is I take it tomorrow or next day. And then once you start practicing this for a few months, take it again. And then you can see kind of the evolution of your practice and see how you're coming along. But I'll just read you a couple of these that are on the scale, and you can just think about it to yourself. One of the questions is, when times are really difficult, I tend to be tough on myself. And it's a scale from 1 almost never to 5 almost always. And another one is, I try to be loving towards myself when I'm feeling emotional pain. And then you think about that on the scale. How do you relate to yourself when you're feeling emotional pain? But this is a really important, I think this is really helpful. And it's, and just so you know, like, this is all based on research. So the practices and everything, this is all scientifically, this is not just things that they just came out within their office. They're like one day, this is all really rigorously researched. And so everything that I'm sharing with you has been, they've, worked with, by now, it's like hundreds of thousands of students that have gone through these same kinds of practices. So that's kind of the, so the self-kindness would be kind of that nurturing. But there's also another part of self-compassion, which I think is really important. Kristen Neff talks about, and she likes to kind of describe it between the yin and the yang. You all probably have heard of the yin and the yang. It comes from Taoist Chinese philosophy. And it's the, the dualities of yin as being that more comforting. That's what we think about as usually with self-compassion, that nurturing, comforting, loving. But then there's another side that this was kind of a breakthrough for me, was that this yang side, this more fierce side, which is more protecting, providing, sticking up for yourself, setting boundaries. And she actually wrote a book really targeted towards women called Fierce Compassion that I would really recommend. It's anybody, and men can read it too, but she really wrote it directly for women because women have really been, in the past, really not been able to really show a lot of like being able to show fierce compassion, especially in the workplace. There was a lot of you looked down upon, and women were looked down upon for standing up and speaking up. So this is something that she's really trying to help be able to make these changes, that we can be with ourselves in a different way. Because sometimes, we need to be tender and nurturing, but then there's other times, we need to say, no, you know what, it's not okay the way you're treating me, or, really, having self-respect. So, and that's a little bit more difficult, I think, for maybe all of us to do that part of the compassion. All right. Anybody have any, before we go to the next thing that I want to kind of illustrate these, is there any questions about those? So we have the 3 steps of, which is mindfulness, the self-kindness, and common humanity. Those are the 3 components of self-compassion. But then we also have the yang, the fierce part of compassion. Okay. So I like to demonstrate these kind of more physically too. So I'll invite you, if you want to stand up, you can stand up for this one. If you don't, you can sit down. But I just want to demonstrate these in our bodies, kind of what this feels like, because I really think it helps. So the first thing that I'll have you do is just first make a fist and start squeezing pretty tight until it feels discomforting. And just start noticing what happens. And I'll ask you you can just say out loud, begin to start, what comes to mind what you're feeling right now? What words come up? What emotions?
About fight.
Fight, okay. Yeah.
Discomfort.
Discomfort, okay. And you can let go, don't hurt yourself, but when you feel, but stay standing. But what else comes up when you're fist like this? Anything else that comes up? Fight, okay. Intense, okay. So what this gesture is really kind of demonstrating is just our, when we're not turning, we're turning away from what's ever happening. We're resisting whatever's happening. This is typically this is kind of what it feels like. And maybe you don't feel in the body, but starting to, feeling in the body, like when we don't want to face something that's going on, this is kind of what it feels like. This, kind of like you said, we're fighting against it, whatever's happening here. Okay, so the next gesture is to put your palms just kind of out like this and open to your side and natural. What do you feel now? Relaxed, okay. Free. So this would be demonstrating mindfulness, being open to what's here. This would be mindfulness, is kind of open to, this is the way it is right now, okay? And so the next one would be, I'll have you kind of take your arms and you're just like reaching out, almost like you're wanting to hug someone. And what comes to mind when you're in this gesture?
Boundary.
Boundary, okay.
Protection.
Protection. Comfort, okay. So this would be so I'll go back to so this would be common humanity. This would be kind of the gesture of common humanity. And then the last one is putting your hands over your heart, 1 or 2. And what comes to mind when you're doing this? Yeah. Caring. Yeah. So this is the self-kindness. And this is actually just this resting your hands on your chest. This is something that this is one of my big go-tos. And this is just something that if you don't already do it, I highly recommend. I do it numerous times throughout the day. It just can be really helpful when you're feeling a moment of stress, just doing that. So before you sit down, so then the last one is, so we talk about the yang. So what Kristen Neff, how she demonstrates is, have you heard of the horse stance? So like in Tai Chi or in a martial art, you kind of like get down a little bit, you squat just a little bit, and your arms are out here, and you're kind of almost like you're getting ready to, not, I won't say fight, but so what comes to mind when you, this is
Action.
action, yes, action. Yeah, action, exactly. So this would be the more motivating. And she even says, I mean, you can do like put a hand up like, no, or, it's just kind of like that feeling. And it's not to say that this is what you would do in real life, but it's just getting that feeling of how this feels, being able to give fierce compassion to yourself. Like, no, it's not okay. So you can go ahead and sit down. And another one is just, another exercise, just feeling the feet on the floor. I don't know if any of you feel that when you're, noticing throughout the day, just to be able to check in with the body is so important, just to be able to ground in. If you're standing, just feeling the soles of the feet on the floor can really help you. Just really being able to ground the body, because the body's always in the present moment. It's our mind that a lot of times is not, right? Our body's always here. It's just our mind that we need to. So that's why we like the beginning meditation, just trying to bring our minds and bodies both together at the same time. That's when we can have healing and peace, right? All right. Okay. So just to kind of, so these are just some of the stress responses. So you probably heard of fight, flight, freeze. All right, so this is kind of what we go into then when we're in a stressful situation, for fight, the stress that is usually like self-criticism, right? So we'll fight against something, we're going to fight against ourselves, we're going to criticize, how, gosh, you just did it again, whatever, I broke that glass, now I got to go buy a whole new set or whatever the case may be, and so the self-compassion response is self-kindness. Flight is opposed to self-isolation, which, people, I experienced this, was just self-isolate. I'm going to go lay on the couch, or I want to go, go to my bed and just sleep. We want to sleep our troubles away. That's self-isolation. But again, what's helped me is that common humanity, like Chris, it's like, gosh, you're not the only one. You don't have to feel like you're all alone here. And then the freeze is that self-absorption, just and being able just to be aware, really be aware. But before I do that, so I want to do a short meditation with you, and I call it a meditation, and this is on Kristen Neff's website. You don't have to do this as a meditation, but it's really more of a practice about bringing then the yin and the yang. So this exercise is really to help bring the yin and the yang energies together. So I'll invite you to go ahead and close your eyes. And just get in a comfortable posture where you're comfortable, feet flat on the floor if you can. And just start noticing your breathing. You don't need to control it. Just let your body breathe naturally. Your body knows how to breathe all on its own. So just letting it be natural, softening the belly if you can. And your mind will likely start to wander pretty fast. And just seeing if you can bring your attention back to the breath with kindness, not beating yourself up if you get distracted. It's just what the mind does. So just bring your attention back to the breath and just focus on the in and out breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Naturally and easy. So now I'd like you to do is to start to notice your in-breath specifically. And feel the inhalation. We're going to be breathing in fierce, yang energy. So to help with that, I'd invite you just to sit up a little taller and straighten your back. Hold your head up high, just to embody a more fiercer posture. You can also use your hands to support you. Maybe you put both of your hands on your solar plexus, which is just below the rib cage. This is your energetic center. Or you could put a fist on your heart if that feels comfortable. But just some way to help your hands feel supports you. So either a fist on the chest or the solar plexus. And just focusing on your in-breath. And as you breathe in, just imagining breathing in fierce yang energy. You might even feel the energy rising up from the bottom of your spine, flowing through your body with each in-breath. If it's helpful, you could add a visual too. You might imagine your body being filled with a bright white light with each in-breath. And when your mind wanders, just simply bringing it back to the in-breath. That fierce energy flowing through your body from the base of your spine, empowering you, filling you with a bright white light. And then take a big breath in and hold for a moment. Hold it. And then let it go, flowing out. Letting go, letting go. And now we're going to switch our focus to the out breath. And so just noticing the exhalation. Your body kind of relaxes. And maybe you're not sitting up quite so straight now. You're not slumping, but you're more relaxed. You might want to move your hands to be gentler and soothing, perhaps maybe both hands on your heart. Start focusing on your out breath and feeling a more gentle, nurturing energy flowing through you. As you exhale, let go. You might imagine a light flowing through you now as more of a soft golden, maybe, or a pink light, a gentle light. Letting this tender yin compassion nurture you, heal you, and flow through your body. And then take a big breath in and hold it. Hold it. And let it go. And now I'd like you to notice both your in and out breath. Noticing the flow of air in and then out. And your posture could be somewhere in between, relaxed and sitting up straight. And this time you could put your hands in a way that symbolizes both fierceness and tenderness. Maybe a fist on your heart and then the other hand on your solar plexus. So using your hands to support you. And as you imagine breathing in this fierce yang energy, and as you breathe out, you're releasing this tender yin energy. Breathing in and breathing out. These two energies merging, mingling within you. So don't try to keep them separate. Let them merge. You might internally even say to yourself, I invite yin and yang to merge and integrate within me. Perhaps the two lights even merge and integrate to become a bright light flowing on the in-breath and the out-breath, like waves of the ocean. Flowing in, flowing out. Naturally. And if you feel you need a little bit more focus on the yang in breath, feel free to focus on that. If you need to energize yourself. Or if you feel you really need to relax and let go, you can focus more on the out breath. Just remembering we always need to breathe in and out. Give yourself what your body needs. And when your mind wanders, just bringing the attention back to the breath, allowing the yin and the yang to flow freely. You don't have to do it, just let nature do it for you. It's the way of things. So taking a deep breath in, holding, and then just slowly letting go of the practice. Just gently bringing attention back to the room and just noticing what's arise in you. How do you feel in this moment? And you can open your eyes when you're ready. So what did you notice? Anybody want to share? Mm-hmm. So you're able to keep the attention on the breathing pretty good. Anything else that you came up? Were you able to give yourself what you needed? Were you able to kind of fluctuate if you needed more of the yin or the yang, or were you able to feel? I'm sorry, say that again. The room disappeared. Okay. So it sounds like then you were maybe your awareness was on, you had some good awareness then maybe. Yeah, well, it's. Anybody else have anything that you noticed that came up? So this practice is just a way to start feeling it in the body. It really, like I said, it's something that we're not checked in with our bodies. And so if we can do these type of exercises and be able to feel it and give us, it really help us be able to actually express it when we need, like being able to give ourselves, if we need comforting, to give ourselves comforting. Don't be afraid to give ourselves what we need. Or if we need to be, do the fierce, we need to be able to give that to ourselves. Whoops. So just to hit on a few, so self-compassion comes with a lot of people have a lot of myths about what they think self-compassion is. And I think that's why not as many people want to practice it. I think even the name self-compassion, having the word self in there, I try to even sometimes want to call it inner compassion instead of self-compassion, because we don't, that self kind of gets in the way. Like, I don't deserve to give myself this. But so some of the biggies, I just want to, I guess the research shows that one of the biggest blocks is that if we think that if we practice this, I'm going to be easy on myself, we're going to be too easy on myself, and we're not going to be motivated to do what we need to do in our job and our lives. This is not true. Research has clearly shown that actually self-compassionate people are more motivated, they are more productive, they get things done. And then when they fail, that they're kinder to themselves, and then they actually can rebound quicker because they can give themselves self-compassion when they fail. I'm just going to go through some of these. So self-pity. So it's that's one of the biggest myths, is feeling sorry for yourself. But so self-compassion is really, being able to have ourselves, accept what's going on, acknowledge the difficult feelings with kindness. And research shows that we don't get swallowed up by self-pitying thoughts as much. And that's something I know from fact for myself. Like, I'm so much better now. Like, I don't criticize myself. I don't have those deep valley, dives where I'm just really getting on myself. I notice the inner voice. So I know for a fact that it hasn't made me complacent. If anything, it's made me motivated to want to like get out and teach and, you know, do this work. Also, it's not one of the biggest things that it'll undermine our motivation. I kind of mentioned that already, that actually that's not true at all. What else? And research shows that self-compassionate people are no less likely to have high personal standards. They just don't beat themselves up when they fail. And research is clearly showing that self-compassion is a far more effective force for personal motivation than self-punishment. So, so the research is really strong on this. And it's also that they're not selfish. Well, one of the things is that self-compassion is really very different than being selfish. Many people are reluctant. They think that, you know, I'm going to be easy on myself. I'm just going to sit on the couch all day and eat a tub of ice cream or something. You know, self-compassion is really about long-term. You know, what's the long-term like view? So self-compassion, your inner voice would be telling yourself, you know, is this really skillful right now? Sitting on the couch for 3 hours and binging on Netflix and eating a tub of ice cream? You know, and it's like, this is going to feel good in the short term, but in the long term, is this really? So self-compassion is really about the long term. So it's not about self-indulgence. So that's something I think is really helpful to know. So one of the things though that comes up when you're beginning to turn inward and practice self-compassion is a term you've heard of, backdraft. You know, in firefighters, you know, when you let, you know, when you've got fresh air into, you know, they open a door and you get that burst of air that comes through, you know, that's this kind of discomfort that can arise, that sense of, how do I say it? So for me, it came up when I was sitting in meditation and, you know, I was really I was doing like a self-compassion practice. And then, you know, I started to get sad and I started to cry, you know, happened more than once. And that would be the backdraft. And so at first I was really nervous, like, you know, I got to stop doing these practices because it's making me, you know, making me more sad. I'm like, you know, I was telling my therapist, I'm like, you know, I'm crying, I'm bawling my eyes out. And what I've learned is that this is a natural occurrence that happens when we practice, when we give ourselves self-compassion, when we're letting the kindness in and the, you know, these negative feelings about ourselves are coming out, you're going to get this backdraft, this discomfort, and it can come up, you know, as emotionally as shame or grief or fear, mentally, you know, thinking that I'm all alone and I'm a failure. And also can be physically, body memories, pains, chronic pain. A lot of times when people have chronic pain, it's associated with some, you know, with emotions. So this is something that really, I really like to mention it and talk about it so that you're aware if you started to practice this and, you know, because this is something that has to be practiced on a regular basis. But the backdraft is, you know, it's pretty common that this will come up. So what you can do is to, you know, that's a time to practice self-compassion. So just giving yourself, what do I need? Like asking yourself, and you can ask this question as many times as you need, is what do I need to feel safe right now? Or just even the question, what do I need right now? And giving yourself that. Maybe I need to stop practicing and I need to go take a walk, or I need to go, I love comedy TV. So you know, I'm going to sit in for a half hour, I'm going to watch something funny. And because laughter is what I need right now. I need to laugh. I need to stop thinking about, you know, my memories. And so anyway, so doing ordinary activities, you know, like I said, can really help with that. But the good news is that, so, I mean, that's what can come up, but there's so many positives. The research is so like, it's just so powerful, the things that have come up, that it's you're just well-being. I mean, I feel happier. I'm not on any medications. It's not because of medications. It's because of these practices. I know it has to do with being mindful and having a lot of self-compassion, is that it helps me be able to cope with adversity, know my emotions are going on, what's going on, have more emotional intelligence. That actually this practicing helps you become more emotional intelligent. Decrease in anxiety, depression, shame. Chris Germer is actually coming out with a book. I'm very excited about this on self-compassion for shame, because shame is one of the really most difficult emotions to deal with, because it's just about who we think we're just, it's us, there's something flawed about us. And so it can be really, it's really trouble. It can be difficult to get over that. But self-compassion, I found, is a huge, powerful force against it. Improve physical health. Because when we're self-compassionate, we're taking care of ourselves, we're exercising, we're eating better. And then just with our relationships, I mean, my God, I mean, this could have, saved me from having a divorce possibly, I mean, just being able to be in relationship with our family in a more kind way. If you're more kind to yourself, you're going to have more ready available to be able to be more kind to others. So I mentioned this, just this is really a powerful question, is to ask all the time, every day, what do I need? Maybe just posting a little post-it note, or, somewhere where you can see it. What do I need right now? Because we tend to not do this. We're on autopilot most of the time, and we don't take time just to pause. So this can be really, what do I need right now? And then and then again, going back to the first exercise, how would I treat a friend in the same situation? But another question too, I think, and I'd like to hear from anybody who's like, how do you care for yourself already? How are you, so I'm sure that you're already doing some things to care for yourself. And so please don't stop doing those, whatever they are. If anybody has something that really works for you, please, go ahead and you can, because that would help the rest of the group, I think, know kind of what are some tools that you're already using. Anybody have anything that works for you? Yeah.
Meditation.
Thank you. Great.
Life happens. You have to be present. You have to present yourself.
Mhm.
And you know first, and it gets care of what you have. So yeah, meditation every day, I do walk every day, and
Great.
so
Oh.
that first was motivation, but I wish I would start.
Mhm.
You have to make time for you, always.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and giving the plug for meditation, because that's something that I know a lot of people, they don't want to do it or think they can't do it. But I highly recommend it. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I do it every day, and my day is not the same when I don't do it. Just grounds me. And research just shows just 10 to 12 minutes a day of meditation is all it takes to make a difference. If you do that for at least 6 to 8 weeks, there's actually changes in the brain that happen just as little as 10 to 12 minutes a day. So you don't have to sit for a long time. Of course.
It actually changes your health as well. I mean, you sleep better, and it's just amazing how you sleep better and you're more relaxed, it lowers your blood pressure. It takes on a lot of different forms. But
Yeah,
but
no.
you notice the changes. I have friends who have started meditation, and they say, oh, it's just too much time. No, you can just sit with yourself for 3 minutes and start from there. Just be gentle with yourself, and that's basically the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, just, because I'll have students that'll ask me like, how much time should I meditate? I'm like, however long you can do it for. If you've got 1 minute, 1 minute's all you've got, then sit for 1 minute. It's just about the actual intention of just sitting down, or you could do it standing on your head. But taking that time every day is really important. So here's some phrases too that I think are really, this was helpful. I sure wish I had this a long time ago. It's just to have ready some phrases that you can say to yourself. And these aren't affirmations. So affirmations are different. Not to say affirmations are bad, but these are more, and they start with the may I, which comes from, it's more of the loving, you might have heard of loving kindness meditation. That's how loving kindness meditation is done, is may I be happy, may I accept myself as I am. So these are just some phrases that you can remember, incorporate in any moment. I love, may I, accept myself as I am. That's one of my go-tos. May I be kind to myself in this moment. And, so just having these phrases, there are some other things that you can do. I just have a few that I'll give you. just watching the language too, watching the self-talk. That's something we don't really notice in the tone. Like, how are you talking to yourself? Didn't even notice I was going around just really, just kind of like a yelling at myself. And I didn't realize it was really yelling because I was so accustomed to it. It was just part of me. But I was noticing, like, wow, as I was practicing, I'm like really aware, I'm like, that's really, wow, Chris, is this not really, does this feel good? And no, it doesn't feel good. What else? Gratitude. I can't emphasize enough, just, once a day at the end of night, just even lying in bed, just thinking of 3 things you're grateful for, focusing on what went well during the day. And it could just be little things. Doesn't have to be big things. Just one thing I've started to also look into is called mirror work. So it's actually standing in front of a mirror and actually doing this type of work, these phrases, talking nice to yourself. I found that was really helpful too. There's not a lot of research yet on that, but just being able to see yourself, it's kind of another dynamic. Some people don't comfortable. I wasn't at first, like looking at myself, it was kind of awkward. But there's some research being done on like actually being in front of a mirror and doing this work. What else? I think those are the big ones. So this is big on the handout that I have is just some questions that kind of help yourself start to think about, how am I caring for myself already? And physically, with your mind, emotionally. And we kind of talked about, ways that you could do this with exercise, meditation, diet. These are things that, are common sense, but it's not usually common practice though, I think, for a lot of us, right? So we just need to and make sure that we're covering all bases. We're connecting with nature once, try to do that every day, some ways. I know it's hard in the Midwest because it's so cold or dreary out. Just getting outside in nature can be helpful. And on the handout I'll give you on your way out, Kristen Neff has this, it's called the self-compassion break. And I have it's on the handout for you. And this is something she also has it as a guided meditation on her website. But it's basically going through the 3 components. And you could do it in any situation. So in a difficult situation, it's just kind of bringing up, like noticing the mindfulness, noticing what's happening, and then bringing in that, that common humanity, and then the self-kindness. So it's just kind of the 3 steps, but it's helpful if you wanted to have her guide you through it. You can listen to it, or it's on your sheet. But it's just a good way to keep remembering those 3 components. And this is just more of a it's kind of funny, but I'll read it to you. This is, if you sit after difficult news, if financial downturns, you remain perfectly calm. If you see your neighbors travel to favorite places without a tinge of jealousy, if you can happily eat whatever is put on your plate, if you can love everyone around you unconditionally, if you can always find contentment just where you are probably. So what I mean is just not to give ourselves a break, So all these things, these things happen. This is the human condition, but we don't have, we weren't trained to do this. Mindfulness and self-compassion, this comes out of our prefrontal cortex, which is the newest part of our brain. So everybody, we just have to know that we have the capacity to do this. We just haven't evolved. And I think, by you mentioning meditation, more people are starting to meditate. I think we're getting there slowly but surely. But I think we just, we've got a long way to go. It's kind of like physical exercise. We didn't know physical exercise was good for us back in 1980. And then they did all the research, and now we can all agree that, physical exercise is really good. I think mindfulness and self-compassion is going to be in that same place. We just aren't there yet with all the research and getting it out there. And lastly, I'll just, Kristen Neff talks about, whoever said that we were supposed to be perfect, and that why can't we just, at the end of the day, just leave it at we can be a compassionate mess. And I really love this. And that means just in focusing on getting it right, just focus on opening our hearts to ourselves. So this is something that, we're going to fail. It's what it means to be human. But in the midst of all these failures and disappointments that are going to happen, can we give ourselves just a little bit more kindness, or fierce kindness if we need it? And then these are some of the resources that I recommend. I grabbed this one off I saw that Janet had on the shelf. So this is one book that I know the library has, Radical Compassion. So this is a great book. But then, so the ones I mentioned, Kristen Neff and Chris Germer, Kristen Neff's book, Self-Compassion, Proven of Power of Being Kind to Yourself. And then Chris Germer's The Mindful Path to Self-Compassion, those excellent books. Two of the best books on self-compassion that I've ever read. And then they have a workbook, which if you really wanted to do this work, because they have an 8-week program that you can take online, or they also have in-person programs. And the workbook is kind of like the accompanies the program, but you don't have to take the online course. You could just buy the book on Amazon and go through the program that way. But if you also, if you have the desire to really dive into this, it's a pretty intense program, but I highly recommend it. It's an incredible, it's life-changing. It really is. And then there's a couple of more books down there that I also recommend. So I just want to stop there and thank you again for being here, but then also just seeing if there was any questions. And I have a poem that I wanted to end with, but I'll first, if there's anybody has any comments or questions, happy to answer anything, or anything that take away, something maybe that you feel like you want to move forward, and like maybe there's one thing that you can implement, and maybe that's something that I think I would challenge you, is just to try to leave here tonight with maybe something, one thing that you could start doing.
Library will be closing in 15 minutes. I have to check that one, the circulation desk is. Or thinking about something.
Great question. I mean, there's different types of meditations. The one I teach is mindfulness meditation. So it's not about, we can't get rid of thoughts. So that's the first thing. People think that, I can't get rid of the thoughts, so I'm not good at meditation. That's not the goal of meditation. It's just to be just noticing the thinking. Because once we sit down, we start to really become aware of how much thinking that we're doing. But it's not about doing that. It's just an object on the breath. It could be the breath or sounds or the body. And it's just it's just training the mind to keep your attention on one object, but it doesn't have to be the breath. It could be on the body, because some people aren't comfortable with the breath for whatever reasons. And so the breath, but that's the most common object, is just to rest your attention on the breath. And there's guided meditations that you could do. I would recommend that if that's comfort, if you want to do, they have a lot of apps. But the self-compassion, and then there's loving kindness practices, meditations, which is those phrases I was reading, that would be kind of what loving kindness meditation. And that can be really, you can do loving kindness for yourself, and then just repeating phrases to yourself. May I be happy? May I live with ease? May I, be kind to myself, whatever. You could come up with your own phrases. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Feeling that thinking about your breathing, laying in bed when you can't get to sleep on those nights where you're thinking of things that you just can't get rid of.
Yeah.
Because my mind never wandered while I was doing that.
Doing meditation?
Yeah,
It never wandered.
no, we were doing that. No, it stayed right with my breathing. So I thought it might help.
If you haven't-
nice.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Meditation has helped me. Just doing a little body scan. If you can't sleep, just kind of checking with your body, and since going through the body parts, that can be really helpful too. Yeah. All right. Well, and I'm happy to stay out. I've got one. Just I want to leave you with one poem, and then I'll stay around if anybody. And Janet's got the handouts there. Yeah. And lastly, I'll just say, I do think self-compassion is one of the most powerful human capacities that we have, though, to actually be able to help ourselves. I don't know anything that's more effective. I really don't. So I hope that you'll actually start trying to use these. So this poem is it's called "My Beloved Child, Break Your Heart No Longer." My beloved child, break your heart no longer. Each time you judge yourself, you break your own heart. You stop feeding on the love, which is the wellspring of your own vitality. The time has come, your time to live, to celebrate, to see the goodness that you are. Let no one, no thing, or ideal or ideas obstruct you. If one comes, even in the name of truth, forgive it for its unknowing. Do not fight. let go, and breathe into the goodness that you are. And I really like that poem a lot. So just remembering the goodness, you all are, we're we have inner goodness. And so just remembering that. So thank you all for being here and have a great night. And if you want to if you want to just tear off the sheets and hand the pads back in, I can reuse them if you don't mind. That's fine.
This is all written out. It's kind
Oh,
of
that's
weird
fine.
what they wrote too. I mean,
Oh, that's, yeah, sorry.
It's kind of weird. Okay,
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
thank you. It's very good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
That's a card.
Uh,
Or,